I woke up in a hospital bed on a Tuesday morning. The light was that strange, sterile blue you only get from fluorescent bulbs, and there was a beeping sound somewhere to my right that I didn't understand at first. My head felt heavy, stuffed with cotton, and my mouth was so dry it was hard to swallow. But what I noticed first, what cut through the fog of medicine and confusion, was the sound of a zipper. I turned my head, which felt like moving a boulder, and I saw my husband, Mark, standing by the window. He was packing a suitcase, but it wasn't the small, worried bag you pack when you're staying overnight at a hospital to be near your wife. No, this was a big, rolling suitcase, the kind we used for vacations. He was folding bright, colorful shirts, Hawaiian shirts. I could see the edge of swim trunks and a bottle of sunscreen sticking out of the side pocket. My first thought was, is he going on a trip while I'm lying here? I tried to say his name, Mark, but the sound that came out of my mouth wasn't right. It was thick and slow, like my tongue had doubled in size. The left side of my face felt like it was made of wood. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't move it. He spun around, startled. He had a shirt in his hands, halfway folded. Lisa, oh, thank God, you're awake. He said it like a sigh of relief, but he didn't come to my side. He just stood there, holding the shirt, looking uncomfortable. I pointed to the suitcase, my hand shaking. What? I managed to whisper. He looked at the suitcase, then back at me. A flicker of something crossed his face. Guilt, impatience. Well, honey, it's the trip. You remember the trip we booked for my 40th birthday, the one to the Bahamas? My brain was struggling. A trip. I had just woken up. I didn't know why I was in the hospital. You had a stroke, Lisa, he said, filling the silence. A bad one. You collapsed in the kitchen yesterday. You've been unconscious for almost a day. A stroke. The word hit me like a wave. I tried to move my left arm. I commanded it to lift off the sheet to reach out to him. Nothing happened. I tried to wiggle my toes on my left foot. Nothing. Just a vast, terrifying silence where feeling should have been. Panic started to build in my chest, sharp and cold. Mark, I said, my voice a shaky whisper. I can't move my left side. I can't feel it. He nodded slowly. The doctors said that might happen. It's the right side of your brain, they said. Well, they said we'll have to see if it comes back. See, I was a tech entrepreneur. I had built a company worth $65 million from the ground up. I was used to solving problems, to finding solutions. But in that moment, lying there with half my body gone, I felt like I was drowning. I looked at the suitcase again. Where are you going? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated. That hesitation told me more than his words ever could. Okay, Lisa, I know the timing is terrible, but this trip, it's non-refundable. It's $10,000. If I don't go, we lose it all. He was going. My husband was going on a vacation to the Bahamas while I was lying in a hospital bed, paralyzed, having just survived a stroke. The doctors said you're stable, he continued, his voice taking on a defensive edge. You're out of immediate danger. You'll be in here for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, for rehab. You'll have nurses, doctors, you'll be fine. Me sitting here staring at you isn't going to make you better. He walked over and gave me a quick, hard kiss on my forehead, the side that could still feel it. I love you, he said. I'll be back before you know it. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked out. Through the window in my door, I saw him stop in the hallway. A woman was waiting for him. She was young, blonde, wearing expensive workout clothes and carrying a matching suitcase. I recognized her. It was Monica, our company's head of marketing. She smiled at him. He smiled back. And then, right there in the hallway of the ICU, he leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a quick peck. It was a real kiss. The kind of kiss you give someone you're in love with. My husband was leaving me, paralyzed in the ICU, to go on a non-refundable vacation with his mistress. And in that moment, as the door swung shut and the sound of their laughter faded down the hall, something shifted inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was something else, something sharp and clear. It was the moment I decided to take everything back. I'm Lisa Morgan. I'm 43 years old now, and I live in a little apartment in Lisbon, Portugal. But for a long time, my life was very different. I grew up in Berkeley, California. My parents were both professors. My dad taught engineering at the university, and my mom was a researcher in biology. They met at a conference, fell in love over equations and lab results, and raised me in a house where being smart was the best thing you could be. I was that kid who took apart the radio to see how it worked and then put it back together. I could write simple computer programs before I could ride a bike. When I was in middle school, I built a website for our local library. My parents weren't rich, but they gave me something better than money. They gave me confidence. They told me I could build anything I could imagine. I went to Stanford for college, and then I stayed for graduate school. My focus was on data systems, building software that could help different computer systems talk to each other. My dissertation was about connecting hospital databases. It was technical, niche work, but I loved it. I believed technology could save lives if we could just get it to work together. I was 28, fresh out of my PhD, when I met Mark Hartley. He was 31, working in sales for a software company. We met at a tech conference in San Jose. I gave a talk about my research, and he was in the audience. Afterward, he came up to me. He wasn't a technical guy. He didn't understand the code I'd written. But he understood something I didn't. He understood business. He saw my research and he saw dollar signs. "This," he said, pointing at my presentation slide, "this is a product. This is a company. You're sitting on a gold mine and you don't even know it." I was flattered. For so long, my work had been stuck in academic papers that only a handful of people would ever read. Mark talked about putting it into the hands of doctors, of hospitals. He made me feel like my work could actually matter in the real world. We started dating 2 weeks later. He was charming, confident, and he listened to me. He made me feel brilliant. I fell in love with the way he saw me. A few months into our relationship, my grandmother passed away. She was my dad's mother. She had lived a quiet life, worked as a school teacher in San Francisco for 40 years. But she was smart. She had bought a small apartment building in the Mission District back in the 70s, when nobody thought that part of the city would ever be worth anything. She held on to it for decades, and as San Francisco grew into a tech hub, that building grew in value. When she died, she left everything to me, her only granddaughter, the girl who was going to change the world. It was $85 million. I was 28 years old, with a PhD, a revolutionary software idea, and more money than I had ever dreamed of. Mark proposed to me a month later. We were having dinner at a nice restaurant in Napa. He got down on one knee and gave this beautiful speech about building a life together, about being partners in everything. I said yes without a second thought. We got married a few months later in a small ceremony at a vineyard. My parents were there, looking a little worried but supportive. My younger sister, Jen, was my maid of honor. She was in law school then, sharp as a tack and fiercely protective of me. It was a perfect day. A week after we got back from our honeymoon, Mark brought up the business idea again. "Lisa," he said, sitting at our kitchen table with a notebook full of his scribbled ideas. "We have to do this now. You have the technology, I have the business experience, and you have the money to fund it. This is our moment." He proposed we start a company to build the healthcare data platform I designed. He said it would cost about $12 million to get it off the ground. I didn't hesitate. I had $85 million. Spending 12 to build something meaningful seemed like a perfect use of that inheritance. It felt like honoring my grandmother's legacy. "Let's do it," I said. Mark's friend from college, a guy named David, was an accountant. Mark said David could help us set up the company structure, make everything tax efficient. I was focused on the technology, on the code. I didn't pay close attention to the paperwork. I trusted Mark. David explained that it would be simpler to have Mark as the CEO and the primary owner on the documents. "Lisa will be the CTO and a major shareholder," David said. "But since you're married, and California is a community property state, it doesn't really matter whose name is on what. It's all shared anyway. This just makes the tax filing cleaner." I should have asked more questions. I should have called my own lawyer. My sister Jen was in law school, for goodness sake. But I didn't. I was in love. I was excited. And I was too busy building the software to worry about the fine print. I signed the papers without reading them closely. We called the company Hartley Systems. Mark was the CEO, the face of the company. I was the CTO, the one in the background writing the code. The first few years were tough. We rented a small office space in San Francisco. I worked 18-hour days, leading a team of 5 brilliant engineers. We built the platform from scratch, line by line. It was the hardest technical challenge of my life, and I loved every minute of it. Mark handled the business side. He went to conferences, made sales calls, met with investors. He was good at it. He was charming and persuasive. He told me that investors and hospital administrators were old school, and they responded better to a male CEO. "It's stupid and sexist," he said, "but it's reality. You're the genius who builds it. I'm the guy who sells it." It made sense to me. I didn't want to do sales calls. I wanted to code. Our first client was a small hospital in Modesto. It was a $100,000 contract. We celebrated with champagne in the office. Our second client was a major medical center in San Francisco, $800,000. By the end of the second year, we had a dozen clients. By the fifth year, we were worth $10 million. Somewhere in those years, I lost track of who owned what. Mark's name was on everything. When the tech magazines wrote about us, they interviewed Mark. When we won industry awards, Mark accepted them on stage. He always mentioned me in his speeches. "My wife, Lisa, is the genius behind this technology," he'd say. "I'm just lucky to be married to her." It sounded like he was giving me credit, but slowly, subtly, the story changed. People in the industry started to talk about Mark Hartley's company. They forgot I was the one who had built it. They thought I was a talented employee he had hired. I told myself it didn't matter. We were married. The company was ours together, but it did matter. Because when Mark hired a new marketing director 2 years ago, a woman named Monica, he introduced her to his company. When investors came to visit, they asked to meet with Mark, not with me. When a major business publication did a profile on successful entrepreneurs, they featured Mark and mentioned me in one sentence. "Hartley's wife, Dr. Lisa Morgan, serves as CTO." I had become a footnote in my own story. And our marriage had become a footnote, too. By the time I turned 40, Mark and I were living like roommates. We had a beautiful house in Pacific Heights, a view of the Golden Gate Bridge from the living room. But we slept in separate bedrooms. Mark traveled constantly. 3 or 4 nights a week, he was gone. When he was home, he was distant, always on his phone, always taking calls behind closed doors. We had dinner together maybe once a week. The conversations were brief. "How's the new code?" "Good." "How was the trip?" "Productive." I told myself it was normal, that this was what happened after 15 years of marriage, that building a company was stressful. I didn't let myself think about the fact that Mark never touched me anymore, that he never kissed me goodbye, that I couldn't remember the last time he told me I looked nice. I didn't let myself notice how much time he spent talking to Monica, how they'd have long meetings in his office with the door closed, how she'd laugh at his jokes in a way that felt too comfortable. I was willfully blind, because facing the truth, that my husband had stopped loving me, that he might be having an affair, that he had slowly, carefully taken over the company I had built, was just too painful. So I buried myself in the work. I wrote code. I made our platform better. Work was safe. Work made sense. Until the morning of March 12th, when I was in our kitchen making a cup of coffee, and the world suddenly tilted sideways. It happened so fast. One moment I was standing at the counter, pouring coffee into my favorite mug. The next moment my hand just opened. The mug fell and shattered on the tile floor. I looked down at my hand, confused. I tried to pick up the pieces, but my left leg wouldn't move. It just collapsed under me. I went down hard, the side of my face hitting the cold floor. I tried to call for Mark, but my mouth wouldn't work. The words came out as a garbled mess. I remember thinking, this is bad. This is really, really bad. Then everything went black. I woke up 19 hours later, in the ICU, with Mark packing a suitcase. The neurologist came in after Mark left. Her name was Dr. Simmons. She was kind, with a calm voice that made me feel like I was in safe hands. "Ms. Morgan," she said gently, sitting by my bed, "you had a hemorrhagic stroke. There was bleeding in the right side of your brain. It's affected the left side of your body." I asked her the only question that mattered. "Will I get better?" She paused. That pause was a knife in my chest. "We don't know. Some patients regain full function, some don't. We will start intensive physical therapy as soon as you're stable. But Lisa, I have to be honest with you. This was a serious stroke. Your recovery is going to be long and difficult. It could take months. It could take a year. We have to take it day by day." I started to cry. The tears ran down my right cheek. The left side of my face stayed still, numb, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. Dr. Simmons looked around the room. "Where is your husband?" she asked. I looked at the empty chair where Mark's suitcase had been. "He left. He went on a trip. He said it was non-refundable." The look on her face told me everything. It was a mix of shock, disgust, and professional neutrality. She wrote down a number for the hospital's social worker. "Call her," she said. "You need support." After she left, I lay there, staring at the ceiling. My husband had left me. He was on a beach somewhere with another woman, while I was lying here, half my body paralyzed, fighting for a future I didn't know I'd have. He thought I was too weak, too broken to do anything about it. He was wrong. I picked up my phone with my right hand, the hand that still worked, and texted my sister Jen. "I need you. Come to SF General. Now." She replied in seconds. "On my way. Be there in 20. When Jen walked into my ICU room, she looked like a force of nature. She's a corporate attorney, one of the best in San Francisco. She's sharp, she's fierce, and she loves me more than anyone in the world. She took one look at me, paralyzed, crying, tubes everywhere, and I saw her face harden. "Lisa," she said, grabbing my good hand. "Tell me everything, don't leave anything out." I told her about the stroke. I told her about Mark leaving with his suitcase. I told her about Monica in the hallway. I told her about the kiss. Her grip on my hand tightened. "I'm going to destroy him," she said quietly. "Not in a way that gets me arrested, but he is going to lose everything." I told her my idea. "I want to sell the company. I want to take everything and disappear before he gets back." She pulled out her phone, her lawyer mode fully engaged. "Tell me about the company. Tell me about the money, from the beginning." I told her about my grandmother's $85 million, about the $12 million I transferred to the business account in 2009, about David's advice to put everything in Mark's name, about the papers I signed without reading. "Do you have proof of the transfer?" Jen asked. "Yes, I have all the bank records." Her eyes lit up. "Lisa, this is everything. You provided the capital. You are the founder. The fact that Mark's name is on the incorporation papers is not the final word, especially if it was based on fraudulent advice." "There's a problem," I said. "Mark has power of attorney over me. We did estate planning a few years ago. If I'm incapacitated, he controls everything." Jen smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Not for long. I'm filing an emergency motion to revoke that today." She moved fast. Within a few hours, she had filed an emergency motion with the court. She called in favors from her old colleagues. She got an emergency hearing scheduled for the next morning. The next day, less than 48 hours after my stroke, Jen wheeled me into a courthouse. I was in a wheelchair, still in my hospital gown under a jacket, my left arm strapped to my side. We sat before a judge, a woman named Judge Morrison. Mark's lawyer wasn't there. Mark didn't even know what was happening. He was somewhere in the Bahamas, sipping a cocktail with Monica. Jen stood before the judge and laid out the case. "Your Honor, my sister, Lisa Morgan, suffered a catastrophic hemorrhagic stroke 2 days ago. She is partially paralyzed and under critical care. Her husband, Mark Hartley, who holds power of attorney over her, abandoned her in the ICU to go on a vacation with his mistress." She presented the evidence. The hospital records showing Mark had not called or checked in. The security footage from the hospital hallway showing him leaving with Monica, kissing her before they walked out together. Judge Morrison watched the footage in silence. When it was over, she looked at Jen. "What are you asking for?" Revocation of Mark Hartley's power of attorney on the grounds of abandonment and failure to fulfill fiduciary duties. And the appointment of myself, Jennifer Morgan, as temporary emergency power of attorney for my sister. The judge didn't hesitate. Granted, Mr. Hartley's power of attorney is revoked, effective immediately. Ms. Morgan, you are hereby appointed temporary emergency power of attorney for your sister. The gavel came down. Jen turned to me and smiled. He has no legal control over you anymore, she whispered. I do, and Lisa, we have 10 days before he gets back. Let's use them. We need to sell the company, Jen said, back in my hospital room. Selling a $65 million company in 10 days is almost impossible. We need a buyer who's ready to move. Summit Health, I said. Who? Summit Health. They're a healthcare tech conglomerate based in Chicago. They've been trying to acquire Hartley Systems for 3 years. They made an offer of $65 million last fall. Mark turned it down. He wanted to take the company public, do an IPO. I had Susan's number in my phone. Jen called her, put it on speaker. Lisa, I heard about your stroke, Susan said, her voice concerned. How are you? Jen spoke up. Ms. Harrison, this is Jennifer Morgan, Lisa's sister and attorney. Lisa is unable to speak extensively right now, but she's authorized me to discuss business matters. Of course. Summit Health's acquisition offer for Hartley Systems, the $65 million offer. Does it still stand? A pause. It does. We're very interested in acquiring Hartley Systems. Nathan is no longer in a position to make that decision, Jen said. Lisa is the founding investor and rightful owner of Hartley Systems. She is prepared to accept your offer. Another pause, longer this time. I was under the impression that Mark Hartley owned the company. A common misconception. Lisa founded the company with her personal capital. The corporate structure was poorly advised. Lisa has legal ownership as the founding investor. We can provide documentation. How quickly are you looking to close? 1 week. 1 week, that's incredibly fast. Ms. Harrison, Lisa is prepared to provide complete transparency, full financial records, full access to all technology and intellectual property. We will make this the easiest acquisition you've ever done, but it needs to close in 7 days. Susan said she needed to talk to her board. She called back in 2 hours. We're in. $65 million all cash 7-day close, but I need to hear it from Lisa. Jen held the phone to my ear. My voice was still slurred, but I made myself clear. Susan, it's Lisa. I want to sell. Let's do this. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Then you've got a deal. The next 7 days were a blur. I was still in the ICU, still going through physical therapy, learning to move my left arm again. But I was also selling a company. Jen coordinated everything. She brought in her entire legal team. They worked through the night, reviewing contracts, verifying finances, preparing documents. The hardest part was proving I owned the company. Mark's name was on everything. But Jen found the proof. She found the original bank statements showing the $12 million transfer from my account to the business account. She found emails from the early days where I referred to the company as mine. She tracked down David, the accountant who had advised us to put the company in Mark's name. She didn't ask him nicely. She confronted him in his office. You advised my sister to put her $12 million company in her husband's name for tax optimization. Explain to me what tax benefit that provided. David stammered. It was to simplify the corporate structure, for tax purposes. There is no tax advantage, Jen said. You gave my sister terrible advice that stripped her of ownership of a company she founded with her own capital. Why? David went pale. Mark asked me to structure it that way. He said it was just for show. He said they were married, it didn't matter. So this wasn't professional advice. This was you doing a favor for your friend. Jen gave him a choice. Provide a sworn statement admitting the corporate structure was improperly advised and that I was the true founder and owner, or face a malpractice lawsuit that would destroy his career. He signed the statement within the hour. Armed with that, the bank records, and testimony from the original employees who had worked with me in the early days, we proved my ownership. Summit Health's lawyers reviewed everything and agreed. On day 6, I signed the final documents from my hospital bed, using my right hand. On day 7, the money transferred. $65 million wired to an account in my name only. Jen showed me the confirmation on her phone. It's done. The company is sold. Mark owns nothing. I started to cry, not from sadness, from relief, from vindication, from the sheer satisfaction of taking back what was mine. But we weren't done. We had 3 days left before Mark came home. Jen and I moved to phase 2, stripping every other asset. I made a list. The house in Pacific Heights bought for $3 million, now worth about $4.5 million. The vacation condo in Lake Tahoe, worth about $1 million. Joint investment accounts, $3 million. Joint bank accounts, $800,000. Mark's Tesla and his Porsche. In California, Jen explained, it's all community property. You're entitled to half. But given that you can prove most of this wealth came from your company, and given Mark's abandonment, I think we can argue for more than half. I don't want to argue, I said. I want to sell it all before he gets back. Jen sold the house in 2 days. She listed it 20% below market value with a condition: cash offers only. A tech executive who'd been looking in the neighborhood for months bought it for $3.8 million. The Tahoe condo sold in a day to a family from Reno. We liquidated the investment and bank accounts, transferring everything into new accounts in my name only. We sold both cars. By the time Mark's plane landed at SFO, his entire life had been dismantled. The company was gone. The house was gone. The money was gone. The cars were gone. And I was gone, too. I checked out of the hospital on Saturday, a day before Mark was supposed to return. Dr. Simmons was worried. You're still in the early stages of recovery, Lisa. You need ongoing physical therapy. You need monitoring. I'll continue therapy wherever I'm going, I said. But I can't stay here. I can't be here when he comes back. She understood. She gave me a folder full of prescriptions, therapy instructions, and the contact information for a stroke support group. She squeezed my good hand. Take care of yourself. You've been through hell. You deserve to heal. Jen picked me up in a rental car. She drove me to a small, furnished apartment in Nob Hill that she'd rented under her name. A place Mark wouldn't know about. A place where I could hide while I finished my recovery and planned what came next. I stayed in that apartment for 2 weeks. Every day, a physical therapist came to work with me. I learned to walk again, first with a walker, then with a cane. I learned to move my left arm to lift it, to open and close my hand. The progress was slow, painful, but it was progress. And I thought about where I wanted to go. I couldn't stay in San Francisco. Mark would find me eventually, and I needed a clean break, a new start, somewhere far away. I had always loved Lisbon. I had visited once during graduate school and fell in love with the light, the hills, the sound of fado music drifting out of tiny bars. The people were warm, the pace of life was slower, and the healthcare system was good. I told Jen my plan. I'm going to Lisbon. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. It's perfect. It's far enough. You can start over. You can be anyone you want to be. 2 weeks later, I boarded a plane to Lisbon. I walked through the airport with a cane, my left arm still weak, but I was standing on my own 2 feet. Jen hugged me at the departure gate. You call me every day. I will. And Lisa, I'm proud of you. I cried on the plane, not because I was sad, but because I was finally free. I wasn't there when Mark came home to find everything gone, but Jen told me about it later. His flight landed on a Sunday evening. He took a taxi from the airport to our house in Pacific Heights. But when the taxi pulled up, there was a sold sign in the front yard. There were unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Through the window, he could see furniture that wasn't ours. He stood on the sidewalk, confused. He tried his key. It didn't work. The locks had been changed. A man came to the door. Can I help you? This is my house, Mark said. I live here. The man shook his head. No, this is my house. I bought it 2 weeks ago. Your wife sold it to me. Mark went pale. He called my number. It was disconnected. He called the house number. Disconnected. He called Jen. She didn't answer. He called his lawyer in a panic. His lawyer told him about the divorce papers, about the sale of the company, about the sale of the house, the cars, the accounts, about the restraining order Jen had filed, requiring him to stay away from me. Mark called the office. A receptionist answered. Summit Health, Chicago office. How may I direct your call? He tried to access the company bank accounts. Locked. His investment accounts. Empty. His personal bank account. He had less than $2,000 left. He called Monica. She didn't answer. When he finally got a hold of her, her voice was cold. You told me you owned a $65 million company, she said. You told me you were a successful CEO. You're broke. You're homeless. You're nothing. She hung up. He never heard from her again. Mark had nothing. And I had everything. I've been in Lisbon for 8 months now. I'm 43 years old. I walk with a slight limp and my left arm is still weaker than my right. I get tired more easily than I used to. But I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm free. I bought a small apartment in the Alfama district, the old part of the city. It's a 4th-floor walk-up with a tiny balcony that looks out over the Tagus River. The streets are narrow and cobblestone, and every morning I hear the sound of the old women hanging their laundry out the windows, calling to each other in Portuguese. I found a wonderful physical therapist here. Her name is Sophia. She's patient and kind, and she makes me laugh. My Portuguese is still terrible, but I'm learning. I can order coffee, buy groceries, have simple conversations. Every week it gets a little easier. I've made friends here. Other expats, locals, people who don't know anything about tech companies or strokes or divorces. They just know me as Lisa, the American woman who walks slowly but always has time for a coffee on the corner. I'm thinking about what to do next. Maybe I'll start another company, something small, something just mine. Or maybe I'll consult for healthcare startups. Or maybe I'll just enjoy life for a while. I've started learning to paint. My watercolors are terrible, but I love sitting on my balcony in the afternoon, trying to capture the way the light hits the river. I take a cooking class on Wednesdays. I'm learning to make bacalhau, the salted cod that's so famous here. I'm not very good at it yet, but it's fun. I walk through the streets of Lisbon every morning, saying good morning to the shopkeepers, feeling the sun on my face. Jen visits every few months. She stays in my guest room, and we explore the city together. We sit in the plazas, drink vinho verde, and talk about everything and nothing. On her last visit, she asked me, "Are you happy?" I thought about it for a moment. "I am," I said. "I'm really happy." She told me Mark is living in Sacramento now. He's working in sales for a small software company. He's renting a 1-bedroom apartment. He tried to sue me, tried to fight the divorce, but he had no case. The judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. He got nothing. I didn't feel anything when Jen told me. No satisfaction, no pity, just nothing. He's a stranger to me now. A chapter of my life that's over. I got an email last month from Susan Harrison at Summit Health. She wanted to update me on Hartley systems. The technology I built is now deployed in over 600 hospitals across the country. It's helping coordinate care for millions of patients. It's saving lives. That email meant more to me than the $65 million, because that's the real legacy. Not Mark's name on the press releases, not the magazine profiles, the work, the code I wrote, the problems I solved. That's what matters. I'm starting to think about what's next. Maybe I'll build another company. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll just keep painting and cooking and learning Portuguese. Whatever I do, it will be mine, on my terms, without anyone taking credit for my work. Mark took 15 years of my life, but he doesn't get the rest of it. I survived a stroke. I survived a betrayal. I survived losing everything I thought I had. And I came out stronger, living in a beautiful city, building a new future, free from the man who abandoned me in my darkest hour. He got nothing. I got everything. And that's exactly what we both deserved. Here, what I learned. Never put your life's work in someone else's name. Ever. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much you trust them. When someone shows you who they are in a crisis, when they abandon you, when they betray you, believe them the first time. The people who leave you when you're broken don't deserve a place in your life when you're whole. And you are never too sick, too hurt, or too broken to take back your power, to rebuild your life on your own terms. My name is Lisa Morgan. I'm 43 years old. I walk with a limp, my left hand shakes when I'm tired, and I live in a tiny apartment in Lisbon with a view of the river. And for the first time in a very long time, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be.